And then also a drone.
Can we have a camera?
I think I put it back down.
Roshi, am I in the box? Can you do the camera? Welcome, Nat. We'll be introducing you in just a moment. Can you hear me okay? This is Kelly. Good morning.
Yeah, there you are.
Good morning. Hi, Kelly. Hi,
Hi.
everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, it's a great pleasure this morning to have someone special with us here today, Nat Vikitsreth. Nat is a nationally award-winning decolonized therapist and facilitator, trans rights activist, and host of the wonderful podcast, Come Back to Care. Please welcome Nat this morning as she speaks to parenting in uncertainty and chaos. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Kelly. สวัสดีค่ะ สวัสดีค่ะทุกท่าน My name is Nadha Vikitsreth. My pronouns she, her. Can you hear me okay? Okay. I come from a Buddhist practice lineage of Theravada Buddhism. And I also come from the traditional Thai medicine through the lineage of Wat Chetupon Wararam and through classical Chinese medicine and Taoist practice. In my classical Chinese medicine lineage, my teacher often teaches that our task for this lifetime is to be all of who we are and offer ourselves back to the world as a gift. And that is the medicine that I live by, that I bring to each family that I have had the honor of working with for the past 20 years. My teacher also teaches that, and she's with the ancestors now, that the task of caregivers and parents is to be the keeper of the sacred flames, where our children come to us with their sacred flames that we need to tend to, that we need to protect, that we need to keep aflamed. Before all the societal conditioning, the survival of systemic oppression squashed that flame away. And it's my honor to be that work, to hold the holders, to care for the caretakers, and be with the parents so that they could tend to themselves, their own flames, and their little ones' sacred flames as well. I know today is supposed to be a talk, but I so believe in the wisdom that's already in the room. And it will be quite interactive. I hope that's okay, where I can have engaging dialogues with everybody here. And my frame for our conversation today is, how do we meet the moment? How do we meet the moment with everything that we have? Our rage, our hope, our grief, our gratitude, our despair, and our fight for liberation. So I wonder if there's any resonance with everything I've just shared, questions, yeah, buts. I do welcome those too.
I was
Hi, Nat. I'm June.
Hi, June.
You said fight for liberation. That was interesting to me. Can you expand on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I find that there's often a difference between fighting against oppression and fighting for liberation. And in fighting against oppression, there's so much repetition of pain that takes place intergenerationally, historically, systemically. And fighting for liberation is cultivating all of our gifts, power, privilege, positioning, and bringing all of that in our unique ways, in finding a role in liberation. And some of the roles that other scholars and practitioners have shared, for example, Deepa Iyer, there's so many roles: a disruptor, a frontline responder, a storyteller, a healer, a weaver, a guide, a healer, a caregiver. And we bring all that we have, find a role, build a community, and plug in. So the posture, if we think of fighting against oppression versus fighting for liberation, we might find the posture to be quite different. Fighting against, there's so much bracing and constriction, waiting for the other shoe to drop, throwing rage and hate that are unmetabolized around, creating more pain. Fighting for liberation, I often find the posture beginning with us rooted deeply with the earth, deeply rooted with the spirits and ancestors. However, there's flexibility, perhaps at the top of the body, to move and be creative and be innovative and be so loving with our co-conspirators that we organize with. Rooted so that we could be nimble and flexible to organize and fight for liberation. And June, I'm not sure if that has gotten to all of the parts that you're curious about. Thank you for the thumbs up. And I think for my own curiosity, I wonder for all of us here, how do you notice the difference when you fight against oppression compared to when you fight for liberation? You, Robin, hi.
Yeah, hi again.
Hi.
I really love that distinction because I've noticed that um, some of the people that I've been reading or listening to are so angry that they sound very much the same as the people I'm angry at myself. And I notice after I listen or read for a while that I'm all worked up, but I'm worked up angry. I'm not worked up like, what could I do? Or how can I be creative? Or how can I connect with someone? Or it's not a creative surge of energy. It's an angry energy.
Mhm.
So I think that's really a great distinction that you've made, and I'm going to think about that a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you. And I find that rage and anger are so important in mobilizing us towards actions that are aligned with our values. But when rage and anger runs our systems and our body dry, like Robin shared, then that's not doing anybody any good. And then when we're consumed by rage and anger, I don't think I have to speak to this group, that sometimes we repeat the same rage and anger with those we often love the most, who have less power than we do, being our children, our partners, the elders in our care. And once we do that, do you feel that, like, post screaming, 3 seconds later, guilt and shame and regret just bubble up right away? Like, oh, shoot, I lost my cool again with my little ones. Hmm. Thank you for that wisdom, Robin. And for all of us who are holding space with me for our collective wisdom. Other observations, whether it's about rage or the differences between fighting for liberation and fighting against oppression.
I think as you've mentioned, Nat, that fighting for liberation, to me, has a feeling of more creativity or envisioning what that would look like, as opposed to maybe what I'm just trying to move away from. And I think it's very interesting that you mentioned the different parts of what makes up or could make up a community like that, excuse me, such as the healer or weaver or disruptor. Could you speak maybe a little bit about what that community may look like?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Kelly. This work is by a practitioner, Deepa Iyer, so I'm going to give her her flowers for naming 10 different roles that we can play in social justice movements. And the task is discernment, where what gifts do I have that I can pick a role to play today? And we often rotate roles. Perhaps we are all healers. And today I wake up with low bandwidth and I just can't be a healer today. But you know what I can be? A builder, where I can connect with my neighbors and perhaps come up with an innovative strategy for the campaign that we're fighting for. Right? So we rotate different roles. Or perhaps today you wake up with a little bit more bandwidth and you could play the role of a caregiver. Perhaps you can't attend a march on the street, but as a caregiver today, you text your best friends, hey, if you want to go to the march today, I can come over and babysit and I'll bring some food so you can go do your advocacy work. So I'll be there and support you because today that's what my bandwidth allows. So there's creativity and flexibility in our organizing work. How's that landing, Kelly?
Yeah, that is landing. And I like this concept you use of bandwidth. Discernment of checking in with yourself and understanding your bandwidth for that day or that moment.
Has anyone felt any guilt of not advocating enough? Or me too, of not just perpetually feeling like I can never do enough. I never do enough advocacy work. I called or text 5 state representatives already, but it's still not enough. I brought cookies to the school bake sale, and it's still not enough. Yeah. So the idea of discerning how much bandwidth do we have is so important, and something that mindfulness practices can come in so handy. It's discernment where we match our action with the bandwidth that we have so that we can get through the day in one piece together. I see a hand raised.
I'm hoping you could be more specific about the book that you just mentioned and the writer Deepak Iyer. How do you
Yes.
spell?
Yes, her name is Deepa Iyer. And I'm looking to the side because I'm looking for her book right now. Robin and Blair was just teasing me about my stacks of books. And of course, when I'm trying to find the one that I need, I will send Kelly the link.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes, I did a beautiful conversation with Deepa on my podcast. It's the most recent episode. She also has a children's book describing these 10 roles, and they are just so beautiful. I often read the book with the preschoolers and the toddlers that I work with, and they all are so enthusiastic about picking a role to play. So they're great for adults and children. I'll follow up with more resources. Carlene, thank you for dropping that in the chat. Oh, and you're based in Canada. Oh my goodness. So honored to have you here. It requires flexibility to meet the moment, especially when you care for little humans or elders. And one thing that I often discuss with the parents in the Come Back to Care community is the idea of hokey pokey, social justice parenting. Right? If you don't have little ones around you and you've forgotten what hokey pokey is, it's the song where you put your left hand in, you put your left hand out, and then you shake it all about. So in parenting and also social justice organizing, we put our whole self into the work. And then when we realize that our bandwidth is running really low, we take our whole self out and do a little shake to recharge before it turns into resentment. And when we take ourselves out and recharge, perhaps we text our co-conspirator, our accountability buddy, our parent BFF, or the auntie in the village, me, right? Hey, I'm tapping out. Today, do you want to tap in, plug in, hokey pokey in? Because we do it in the community, don't we? And when we're a little bit more resourced, a little bit more recharged, then we put our whole self back into the work again, whether that's parenting or social justice organizing. And it requires flexibility. Yeah. I wonder if there's thoughts, resonance, questions, reluctance. What might get in the way of you hokey pokey?
Good morning. Good morning, Roshi. Good morning, Sandra. Good morning, I'm Jackie. I don't know if I'm down behind the chairs.
Oh, hi, Jackie.
Good morning. Oh my gosh. All right, I'll try to stand up.
Okay.
I love what you're speaking about. I work with families, and I work particularly with families that have children with developmental differences. And the work that I do, what you're speaking about, the bandwidth, is really important because I work with caregivers, you know, parents normally, sometimes grandparents or friends, just about understanding the bandwidth of the little ones. Because the co-regulation is what's important, you know, just teaching like, come around your children, swaddle them, hold them, breathe together, get the heartbeats aligned, and understand the bandwidth of the children. And I think in that process, it really helps families begin to understand that this is a family issue. This is not something about a child being the problem. And when they co-regulate together, especially in a somatic way, and their bodies are touching in that way, then it starts changing from those responses that you're talking about. You know, like maybe the fear, the guilt, the shame, the grief that comes along. You know, so it helps the parents also, you know, co-regulate. So sometimes there's families where, you know, both parents and the child, you know, we're hugging, you know, are holding each other, so that it becomes this family dynamic. So I like the bandwidth part you're speaking of, because nothing's going to work in a oneness if it's just about one person's bandwidth. There's not going to be a coming together. You know? So I really appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you, Jackie, for that wisdom. Yeah. There's no single bandwidth. Right? A bandwidth is a Sangha's bandwidth. It takes a whole community. Right? And there's a trap of individualism that a lot of us gets conditioned into performing to survive, where I gotta get through it, I gotta do it. It's only me who can hug my child and co-regulate with my child. Shuping, I see your smile. Yeah. And bandwidth as a collective bandwidth, or bandwidth in a Sangha, is asking families that we work with, who can tap in when you don't have any bandwidth left to co-regulate with your child? Who can tap in and perhaps just do the dishes so you can take a nap? Who can tap in so that you can fall apart and don't feel like you're going through these big feelings alone and abandoned? And this is why when I have the honor of being in a collective like this, I feel so grateful, because you already have this community built in and embody this kind of collective support. Kelly, is that you?
No, this is Ken.
Oh, hi, Ken.
Hi. My question is about whether this feeling of isolation that you have as a parent or caregiver is more prevalent in Western and specifically in postmodern, post-capitalist United States, where we all grew up worshiping the Marlboro Man, the lone figure who gets it all done. And how much of this is us needing to break through that acculturation?
Absolutely. 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 I was born and raised in Thailand. I moved here in my young adult years. And one culture shock that remains. Well, there are two of them. One is still people here wear shoes around the house. Still don't understand. But the second thing is how families are so isolated, and they wear this as a badge of honor when they are doing this family rearing, child rearing alone. In Thailand, that will never be a thing. And if at Come Back to Care, we contextualize things in a political climate a lot. And the questions we often ask is, who wins? When we're isolated, when we perform that bootstrapping, individualistic performance, right? Who wins? And the parents in our community have a clear political analysis of, yeah, we're isolated so that we can disconnect with our little ones as early as 6 weeks to go back to work and keep trading our labor for people who hoard wealth and power. So a simple act of community building so that you're not doing this alone. It should not be radical, but it is an act of resistance. Where it is fighting for liberation. When we build community as a way to model to our future generations. This is how we unlearn individualism. And this is how we love our neighbors and we build with them. And I don't want to be here and just share wonderful ideas. Right? Transparency. I'd love for us to be in a community, resourced, recharged, know when to step in, hokey pokey, and know when to back out and recharge. Because I want us to be in our full power when we mobilize and organize together. I want you to show up at your best-ish. Because I don't want to do this work alone. Yeah. And I don't want any of us to crash into burnout and then leave the work. Because that further fuels the isolation on your part. And it's more work on my part. So we take care of one another along the way as we show up and meet the moment. Especially if you're caring for little ones. Your liberation work is intergenerational. You're healing the wounds from the past while at the same time laying the foundation for the future generations. I don't know what's more important than that. Yes.
I
advocacy and fighting for liberation. In 2020, it felt like there were a lot of momentous kind of shifts in society with social justice movements. And I could see how a lot of those were very superficial at best, because we've regressed a lot since then, where people have really fallen off, and it feels like society has taken a few steps backwards. Just right now, like I feel myself just feeling a little not wanting to be involved in any movements because they were so superficial. Just not to be involved, but just how do you keep yourself motivated and inspired to, when you feel yourself, so to see what's going on in the world and to see how regressed it feels like it's been lately. How do you keep yourself motivated if you feel that? And if you're enlightened or you don't feel that anymore, I understand that.
Thank you so much for your reflection and question. Yeah. How many of us here has felt that? Like, why bother? Right? It's so superficial. The system is so big. Oppression is so complex. So I do have those days too. And I rage cry in the shower. Like it's my sports. I don't exercise, but I rage cry in the shower really well. Yeah. I think the question of despair and cynicism, when it creeps up, and acknowledging them and doing what we can to find our roots and alignment again is so key. And I want to ask for the group, why do we think in 2020, with that racial awareness and reckoning that got blew up so quickly, and now it seems like it's fading? Why do we think it's not rooted here to stay?
I think I think back to an article that Malcolm Gladwell wrote about soon after, I believe, Hillary Clinton lost the election in 2020. He brought up the issue of what happens when there is movement forward, and the assumption is that this is a door opening and there will be further progress. And yet he made the case that throughout history, there is always a cyclical regression. And that this cycle of one step forward, sometimes it feels like 2 steps back or 2 steps forward and 1 step. And you have to appreciate, and this is where my practice has helped me off the mat, is understanding that it's natural to go forward. It's also natural to go back. And the equanimity that we talk about in a lot of our services is really hard. We still find ourselves grasping for the good and pushing away the bad, but that's not where we want to be. So to me, Malcolm Gladwell helped me with that.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that wisdom. And equanimity. If you have the honor of having small children in your care, or if you remember when your little ones were little, they teach us this lesson, right? That in development, there's progression and there's also regression. Think of when they're teething, think of when they're about to mobilize their body, whether using a wheelchair, a walker, a stander, or with their own feet. Right? Or when there's that cognitive burst and they're so curious about language and visual stimulation and they just don't want to eat. And feeding becomes a 3-hour ordeal. Right? They offer us this medicine exactly like you just shared, where there's progression and there's regression. And how do we hold both? How do we honor the progression and give grace to the regression? And with the presidential candidate, I wonder if it's worth reflecting on in dark times, in uncertain times, our human tendency to look for one savior that will come in and save us. And then on the flip side, we look for one villain to blame. Oh, right now there's two. And it's so satisfying to blame them, or it's so reassuring, right? Like a child, a baby grabbing onto our thumb when they were little with their grasping reflex. So reassuring to grasp onto one savior that would come and save us. That would come and reassure us that, yes, we have done everything right. We have worked hard. We find proximity to whiteness. We pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, and that's going to protect us. We want that someone to come reassure us that that's going to be okay.
My question is, in these times that we're in, I am feeling an acute and tender concern for our children who have been nurtured in an environment in which they can express their true selves as trans or non-binary, and suddenly the institutional or cultural context that they're in has become much more fraught. What can I do as an auntie in the village to help nurture these children through this time? They may not have the historical perspective that we do. What can I do?
Yes. Hello, co-auntie in the village. I think your wisdom in that line of question is just the wisdom that you need to answer your question. Did you catch yourself saying that? That our children might not have the historical perspective. So what if we offer them the historical perspective? The lineages of resistance, the lineages of resilience that they belong to. As aunties, uncles, gunkles, caregivers, right? Practicing interdependence with the parents is sharing the survival burden, where if the task of raising change agents during these uncertain times is a balance between teaching our kids how to be survival smart and liberation smart, both protecting them from harm and connecting with them so they know they're loved, seen, and heard no matter what. So we group the task into just these two broad categories: how to be survival smart and how to be liberation smart. I often find that parents are so focused on protecting their little ones, loving them, protecting them, making sure they have everything they need to survive, and also be change agents. For us in the ecosystem, aunties, best friends, caregivers, we can hold that piece of holding joy, holding hope, offering perspectives of, hey, I know you're worried right now because the system yet again is trying to erase people who are different. But do you know these trans and gender expansive ancestors? Do you know what they did? Do you know how they choose love over fear? And in practice, what that can look like oftentimes is we often frame threats on the macro level with our children as, I need to protect you because it's not safe. We can still naming the oppression and not sugarcoating it, but frame it as there's a threat out there, and this is how I keep you safe. This is how we keep one another safe. This is how we build with our neighbors. This is how love is greater than hate. Do you see the difference in the frame? I'm protecting you because there's a threat and it's scary out there, compared to, and this is how we fight for liberation. Coming back to the point that we talked about in the beginning. Our children know, we know that, right? When things are not good out there. Yes.
I was at a retreat one time, and it was a long retreat, 3 or 4 days on site, and we did a lot of meditation, and it seemed to be that the fly was always landing on me. And at one point then, the esteemed teacher was taking questions, and I kind of equate this to dealing with the turbulent times. Anyway, I asked the teacher, I said, this fly is always landing on me. I said, how do you cope with such a thing? And he just looked at me, and he didn't really do a lot of deep thinking. He just said, I know it's not going to be there forever.
They'll fly away. Yeah. And they'll come back. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Remembering the impermanence has helped me too. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. To all the previous wisdom shared and questions asked, did I get to all of them that you're curious about? Did I miss anything? And we can come back to them.
So appreciative, thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Would you tell us about your podcast and what you do?
Thank you, June. Oh, that's my most feared question, right? Talking about myself. Oh my goodness. And here I am, like this auntie just, and you're like, who is she? All of Come Back to Care is meant to be a space for parents and caregivers to come and unlearn oppressive conditionings from white supremacy, colonialism, capitalism, and patriarchy. And we grieve the fact that we had to perform these things to survive. And we find a way to survive and thrive with our children as we're unlearning these conditionings, healing from them, and also weave social justice actions into our day-to-day parenting in a very concrete way. And not just saving social justice for when we go marching in the streets, but how do we do it during bath time, bedtime, meltdown time at Walmart or Costco, like those hard times? How do we practice social justice? And because I'm a therapist and a child development specialist, I also work with children and families who have developmental differences. We have a framework where we get at social justice actions like, yes, solidarity, accountability, power with, and at the same time connect the dots, how these social justice actions promote our children's social emotional development at the same time. The work is complex enough, and I love to be efficient because we can go rest and lay down. So that's what we do, and that's what the podcast is about. It's a library of resources where if you like some companionship while you're doing the laundry or dishes and you want me in your ears, those are the resources for you. Yes, and there's no fee for that. And I'm based in the city. I'm in Chicago, so we're not far. I go to Oak Park often. Yes. Yeah, I shared with Robin and Blair earlier that I have worked with race conscious dialogues often. Yeah, so I go to Oak Park often. Yes. Mm. And I love doing what I do. It's an honor every day. I feel excited going to bed thinking, wow, I get to support caregivers who are committed to their healing and liberation. It's the best. And I wake up excited to do the work after, rage crying in the shower. And then I get excited. And I do community organizing right now with my transgender and gender expansive siblings, families. It's rough out there. It's been rough. Mhm. Mm. And I hear the sound of little ones in the background where you are, and that brings me joy.
I was about to say we are approaching time, as you can hear by the growing
Uh-huh.
in the community room. I wanted to give just another moment or two if anyone has a last comment or reflection to share with the group. Thank you, Matt, for holding this space.
Thank you. Yes.
I could particularly appreciate your talking about doing the dishes as a real act of moving toward liberation, or as it being a very, to be respected, important part of responding to what's going on right now in our country. And that it's a very important thing to do the dishes for your neighbor, and all those little things that you mentioned. And I often, when I think that, I think, oh, this is just a rationalization. This is ridiculous. You're really not doing much. You're just trying to find a way to have it be okay that you stepped out of the hokey pokey and it didn't go back in. And somehow the way that you explain things, or just the whole energy and feeling of spending time with you this past hour has really put a different shift on how I look at those things and the respect and importance that I give to them now. And I thank you so much.
And I thank you so much for your wisdom. You just brought it home. And it's literally, right? In this moment, it's so much easier to blame and shame and practice hatred. And yet, the liberatory action in a micro moment is that I'm going to choose care. And I'm going to do the dishes with gratitude and love. We often talk about honoring the land, honoring the spirits, go march out there and change policies and these big, important things. But if we choose to do the dishes with resentment, if we snap at our children because we're not metabolizing our pain, and we can't embody care and compassion in our home, why would those big, sexy advocacy things matter? I think the things in our home are much harder, right? Much more vulnerable to practice. And the favorite phrase that we say at Come Back to Care all the time is most of the time. That yes, we want to be intentional with our children most of the time. Sometimes we lose it. Yes, we want to be loving and compassionate and model social change with our children most of the time. Not when your bandwidth is low and you need to lock yourself in the pantry and cry. Right? Yeah. So thank you for practicing liberation and fighting for it together most of the time. I'm so grateful for you. Kelly has my contact information, my email. I love emails. Please reach out when you need to. Podcast is a free resource that I put my whole heart into it. I write newsletters twice a month with so much love and joy. It's this, but embodied in words in a newsletter. So I'll share that link with Kelly as well. Everything is at comebacktocare.com. Yeah.
Thank you, Nat, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Enjoy the
Thank
Sundays.
you. Thank you so much.
Those of you who are online Sangha, have a beautiful Sunday.